In what began as a routine Good Morning America interview, Michael J. Fox sat across from George Stephanopoulos, cameras rolling, air of cordiality masking tension beneath. The segment opened with Stephanopoulos referencing Fox's recent projects, asking in measured tone about his new memoir and the challenges he has faced publicly. Fox, composed at first, nodded and offered a measured thanks, but his eyes hinted at simmering frustration. Stephanopoulos leaned forward and posed a more probing question. Some critics say you've glossed over certain struggles in your memoir. How do you respond to claims of inauthenticity or omission? The phrasing struck a nerve. Fox's steady demeanor wavered for a moment. His jaw tightened, hands clasped, and he paused before answering, as though gathering his composure under unexpected pressure. The tension mounted when Stephanopoulos followed up. You've said in previous interviews that certain episodes were too painful to recount, yet here you seem guarded. Are you withholding parts of your life from your audience? That phrasing, Fox felt, was unfair and presumptive. His voice, even at that stage, carried an undercurrent of challenge. He replied, I share what I'm able to, but your phrasing makes it sound like I'm lying. Stephanopoulos, undeterred, pushed further. Some people believe your public narrative is crafted to protect your image. Do you think you've been overly cautious to the point of disingenuousness? The question landed heavily. Fox's expression hardened. He took a breath, eyes fixing on Stephanopoulos, and retorted, with all due respect, your question insinuates bad faith. I don't appreciate that tone. For a moment, silence reigned. The live stage crackled. Stephanopoulos adjusted his papers, tried to regroup. Fox leaned forward, voice firm. I have lived every bit of what I write and speak. If you want to challenge me, do so fairly, honestly, without insinuation. The audience, watching, felt the weight of this standoff escalate. Stephanopoulos attempted to pacify. Let me clarify, I am simply asking tough questions, not casting aspersions. But Fox cut him off. Voice sharper, clarify your phrasing. Yes, because I will not sit here and accept implications that I am hiding truths from people who trust me. The show's producers exchanged worried glances off camera. The host's co-anchors tried to intervene, murmuring strategy off mic, but the main interview remained in Fox's iron grip. Stephanopoulos, momentarily shaken, pressed, is there a fear of hitting emotional walls if you go deeper in public? That question seemed personal. Fox flared. You don't get to define what emotional walls I hit in public. That's my decision. Stephanopoulos attempted more neutral ground. I understand your agency. That said, many fans want fuller transparency. Do you owe them that? Fox's eyes flashed. He leaned in, voice earnest but firm. I owe them respect, honesty and boundaries. That's not contradictory. The cameras lingered on the face-off. Stephanopoulos, regaining composure, posed a softer follow-up. In your memoir, certain chapters are brief. Are those gaps deliberate? Fox's tone cooled. They are deliberate in that they reflect my lived reality. Sometimes events remain too raw, too private, to unpack fully. He added, I don't believe public exposure equates to authenticity. At that moment, Fox visibly tightened. His face reddened. He said, I will not be accused of inauthenticity simply because I pace my sharing. Stephanopoulos attempted to pivot. But many believe your vulnerability is part of your legacy. Fox responded, yes, legacy. But vulnerability is a gift you choose to give, not a demand imposed by media. Stephanopoulos asked, is there something you regret not putting in the memoir? Fox's voice cracked with emotion. He answered, yes, there are things I wish I could revisit for myself, not for public consumption. But I had limits, and I honored them. He glanced down briefly, then back at the camera. The questioning then shifted. Does your public image sometimes feel like a cage? That struck Fox as inaccurate. He bristled. My public image is neither caged nor gifted. It's a part of what I negotiate every day. He taped his chest. But it doesn't define my entirety. The audience sensed his protective posture. Stephanopoulos attempted to walk back. I don't mean to diminish your journey, only to understand it. Fox exhaled sharply, then asked with curiosity, not accusation. He continued, I'm more open than mania, but that doesn't mean I waive personal sovereignty. His tone was steel tempered by pain. Stephanopoulos paused, then asked, What would a fully open version of your life look like, hypothetically? Fox's eyes bore into him. There is no fully open version. There are stories I preserve for myself, for healing, not for scrutiny. He added, I choose my gatekeeping just as I choose what I reveal. As the interview progressed, Fox visibly wrestled inwardly. Stephanopoulos tried, do you feel misrepresented sometimes? Fox's voice cracked. Yes, when insinuations are drawn from phrasing, from tone. I feel misrepresented when assumptions are piled on without evidence. The tension in the studio was now palpable. Stephanopoulos made one last push. Do you think that withholding may disappoint fans who want your full truth? Fox leaned back, voice steady but with finality. I hope they understand that truth is complex, and I will not dilute that complexity for convenience. He added, I can't live in service to others' expectations of me. Stephanopoulos attempted closure. Thank you for being honest about boundaries. Anything else you'd like to add? Fox, steady but firm, said, yes, I respect the line between questioning and presumption. I will always stand for honesty, and I will not stand for insinuation. That is my position. His gaze remained fixed. The show's producers signaled wrap, but the moment lingered. Fox offered a closing. I appreciate the platform, the interest, but I will always choose integrity over compliance. That remains non-negotiable. Stephanopoulos nodded, tension still in the air, the interview ending on a simmer. As credits rolled, the audience was left with the echo of that confrontation, Fox's dignity, his resistance to invasive narrative control, and the implied cautionary tale about journalistic pressure. The dramatic beat of the day replayed in viewers' minds. Was it fair? Was the line crossed? Finally, as the stage cleared, the silent aftershock remained. Michael J. Fox's posture had shifted from invited guest to defender of his own narrative. The cameras cut, but the question endured, when does pursuit of truth become intrusion, and who gets to draw that line? In the hours following the broadcast, social media erupted. Clips of the exchange circulated within minutes, split into short bursts of emotion and accusation. Viewers argued over tone, intent, and respect. Was George being a journalist or an instigator? Was Michael defending himself or overreacting? The debate snowballed, with hashtags like #TeamFox and #RespectBoundaries trending simultaneously across platforms. News outlets quickly seized on the drama. Commentators labeled it everything from a cultural moment to an uncomfortable but necessary confrontation. Some applauded Fox's composure under pressure. Others critiqued his defensiveness. Cable pundits played the footage repeatedly, slowing frames to interpret every expression, every pause, as though decoding a political scandal rather than a human exchange. Publicists scrambled behind the scenes. The GMA producers released a statement calling the interview honest and spirited, while emphasizing their deep respect for Michael J. Fox. Fox's representatives, in turn, issued a short but potent response. Michael stands by his words and values thoughtful, empathetic dialogue. The phrasing subtly implied disapproval without outright hostility, maintaining dignity amid the storm. Within a day, think pieces filled the internet. Writers dissected celebrity vulnerability, journalistic boundaries, and society's obsession with personal pain as entertainment. Many pointed out how Fox's Parkinson's diagnosis had turned him into both advocate and symbol, making privacy a nearly impossible luxury. He's allowed to protect his story, one columnist wrote, because he's lived enough for a dozen lifetimes. Meanwhile, Stephanopoulos faced his own wave of scrutiny. Critics accused him of badgering, of using provocative phrasing for ratings. His defenders argued that tough questions define serious journalism. In response, George addressed the issue during the next broadcast, saying, "It was never my intention to cause offense. I admire Michael and respect his courage." Yet the apology felt rehearsed to some. Fox, for his part, stayed silent for several days. He avoided interviews, skipped promotional appearances, and let the noise swirl. When he finally broke his silence through a quiet Instagram post, it wasn't an explanation but a reflection. Sometimes conversations reveal more about the culture than the people speaking. "I've learned to listen to the echoes." The caption was calm, yet it reignited discussion. Fans flooded his posts with empathy and admiration. "You don't owe anyone your trauma," one comment read, amassing thousands of likes. The tone shifted online. softening toward compassion. Fox's authenticity, his insistence on personal boundaries became a point of respect, even empowerment. For many living with chronic illness, his stance resonated deeply. Media analysts began discussing the moment in broader terms. They argued it signaled fatigue with celebrity vulnerability as spectacle. "We've trained audiences to expect confession over conversation," one analyst said on a panel. Michael J. Fox refused that transaction. The statement went viral itself, turning into a quote shared over images of the actor's calm yet defiant expression. Fox's team fielded renewed interview requests, but he declined most. He preferred small, intentional conversations rather than mass broadcast. When he did appear weeks later on a podcast, his tone was reflective, not resentful. "I don't think George meant harm," he said, "but I think sometimes the format itself pushes people toward confrontation. I just pushed back." The host asked him how it felt afterward. Fox smiled slightly, relieved. He admitted, "Because I realized I can stand my ground without anger. I can set boundaries and still be open-hearted." The clip went viral again, this time framed not as outrage, but as a lesson in emotional maturity and self-respect. In the entertainment world, the confrontation sparked introspection. Producers quietly revisited interview guidelines, asking how to balance depth with dignity. Some journalists admitted privately that they had felt pressured to provoke strong reactions for ratings. Fox's stance, though unplanned, seemed to remind the industry of its moral compass. Among fans, conversations about vulnerability and consent in storytelling flourished. Discussion boards filled with people sharing experiences of being expected to overshare for validation. Fox's moment on live TV became symbolic, a collective permission slip to draw lines and not apologize for them. His discomfort had triggered an overdue cultural reckoning. Weeks later, Stephanopoulos and Fox met privately. According to insiders, the meeting was cordial. They spoke for over an hour without cameras. Sources say Fox explained how certain phrasings made him feel cornered, while Stephanopoulos expressed regret for misjudging tone. They reportedly shook hands, agreeing that mutual respect should always outlast disagreement. The reconciliation story leaked days later, softening the narrative. Tabloids that once shouted fury now printed words like resolution and respect. Viewers appreciated that the two men had chosen dialogue over drama. Fox declined to make a joint public statement, saying simply, "Peace doesn't need a press release." That quote alone trended for hours. Behind the scenes, Fox's friends noted he seemed lighter afterward. He returned to promoting his foundation's latest research initiative, channeling attention toward Parkinson's awareness. Reporters noticed that interviews about his advocacy felt more grounded, less about spectacle, more about purpose. The focus, finally, had shifted from conflict to cause. Yet the ripple effect persisted. Media scholars cited the interview in lectures about power dynamics in celebrity journalism. Students analyzed the ethics of emotional access and public persona. In one classroom discussion, a professor remarked, "Fox didn't lose his temper, he reclaimed his narrative." That's a different kind of eruption. Over time, even the original clip took on a different meaning. Rewatched months later, it no longer looked like an explosion, it looked like a boundary being drawn in real time. Viewers began quoting Fox's words about respect and sovereignty as if they were a manifesto for emotional autonomy. What had been seen as conflict had devolved into clarity. Fox later said in an interview, "That moment wasn't about anger, it was about fatigue. I've spent decades explaining myself. Sometimes, you just want to be understood without interrogation." His honesty resonated across demographics. Audiences realized how easily curiosity can slip into intrusion when empathy is replaced by performance. By the year's end, Fox was honored as an industry gala for authentic representation and resilience. During his acceptance speech, he referenced the GMA incident lightly. "Sometimes, life hands you a microphone at the wrong moment, but maybe that's when you speak your truth most clearly." The crowd stood in ovation, understanding the layered humor. And as months passed, the incident became less about controversy and more about legacy. Michael J. Fox had not merely erupted, he had reminded the public that dignity is not defensiveness, that honesty does not require exposure. The world had watched a boundary drawn live on television and, for once, learned to respect it.